Greetings, Kerbanauts! This is Kerbal Space Program. I'm Bob Fitch, and this is episode number 30 of the Gateway Project, in which we have to launch the Tranquility module up to the KSS, and also attached to that Tranquility module will be the Cupola. This Earth-facing, or I guess Kerman-facing module gives them this awesome view down on the planet and outside the station. However, the first thing we need to do is we need to take care of those poor Kerbals that are stranded currently on Minmus. They got hit with that massive debris storm, all that stuff that came through that portal from the other dimension into our dimension. Still trying to find out whether or not Jospeh had anything to do with that. It's looking right now as if maybe he didn't actually do that it was a coincidence that it came down on our station, because what we're noticing is that these anomalies are opening up close to our spacecraft just generally as we continue with the project and as we go deeper in and have more things up there and the station gets bigger. It's just getting more dangerous out there. Right now, we are launching some rescue parts. We needed some life support over on the space station that's currently orbiting around Minmus, and we need to send some parts down to the surface, and we're going to kill both birds with this one stone. We have a little injection stage there that sent us on our way to Minmus, and now we'll have our little lander, and it's got some docking. It's got a docking node up on top so it can go and connect to the space station. So it'll stop off at the station, it'll deliver the life support, then it'll go down to the surface and land next to the base, where Bill can go out and he can grab some extra parts that we've had to send there that will allow him to repair his spacecraft that's down on the surface. That rescue craft was hit with some debris, and as a result, we now have no way of getting off the surface, and the station doesn't have the part they need in order to send down. So here we are. It has arrived. We just need to dock up to the station. We came in at a really high orbit, and now we're coming down and trying to line up with the station itself. But we do okay, except for the fact that my monopropellant here runs out. What am I going to do? Well, that's okay. You only need monopropellant to make it a little easier. RCS isn't actually required to dock. You can just angle your ship in the direction you want it to be, and once you get lined up fairly well, then just with your regular thruster on the engine here, you can just slowly tap it and give a little bit of extra power. Just a tap, tap, tap. And once you're there, ba-boom, you are docked up. I did a tutorial once actually on how to dock with RCS or without RCS, and so just using some of the techniques from that tutorial, which is somewhere in all of my videos, I just used those techniques and docked up without RCS. So we'll transfer over all of those snacks and some extra water and oxygen to the station because it was getting really low right there. And now we have decoupled so we can head down to the surface and deliver those spare parts. But first, I say it's time to get started on the launch of the Tranquility module and the cupola that goes along with it. And there we are! We have liftoff of the Tranquility module on its way to the KSS. It was in our dimension brought up on Endeavour, STS-30. The space shuttle launched in August of 2010. Tranquility is known as Node 3. If you remember in the last episode, I explained how they named it. They were trying to figure it out. They put out that contest, not contest, but more like a poll, and how Stephen Colbert tried to get it to be named Colbert, but eventually they ended up calling it Tranquility based on the moon landing and landing in the Sea of Tranquility. Uh-oh! I had my staging all messed up. Well, we're flying straight. I guess being at 30 kilometers, you actually don't really need the fairing. Well, I'm going to keep the other half on here till 40 kilometers, and then we'll drop that away. It's fortunate I didn't lose that sooner. But I don't know how I did that. I probably took something off and then put the fairing back on, and sometimes they don't go back into the right spot, and if you don't check every single time before you launch, you'll just create staging issues pretty much every few launches, and I still do that even now. I'm using my RCS right here to make a fine adjustment to my trajectory. Because I'm so far away, just little taps on the RCS can actually completely change where I'm going. And now that we're getting close and we've almost drained that injection stage, we're going to get rid of it while it's still at a low periapsis and can go back and be destroyed. Alright, anyway, while we're coming in here toward the KSS, I'll finish up saying, you remember, okay, I came in very fast on that one. Well, I mean very slow actually, but that's okay. We made it there eventually. So just to finish that thought, reminding you that last time we talked about how Colbert almost got its name changed, but ultimately they went with Tranquility and they named the treadmill after Colbert. If you didn't see episode 29 and you want that whole story, you want to go back to 29 because that's where I had it. So I just brought in my radiators because I see that as I'm coming up to that PMA that's sticking out on the side there, where I'm going to go up and dock, I would bump those radiators if I didn't pull those in right there. So now this is going to be a tricky maneuver. So try and follow me here. I'm going to move up with my tug, and it has the two different docking nodes, one on each side of the two different types. The PMA is in the way of where I need to dock. So on the one side that's currently open, we're coming up to the PMA and we're going to dock to it, then take the PMA off, flip around, allowing me to dock the Tranquility module right where the PMA was. Then we take off the cupola, and we move around down to the underside where we then come up and dock the cupola where it belongs. Then take that off again, the tug off again, moving up where we already have the PMA attached. We'll flip around one more time and dock the PMA. Couple more radiators are probably in the way. We'll get those out. And now we can finish up with that maneuver that I just described. And step one of that was to bring in this crush-in style docking node and attach it to the PMA. So the Tranquility module, it in our dimension is 12.2 tons, was 6.5 meters long and 4.25 meters in diameter. When I translate that into my dimensions, oh, radiator is still in the way. We got to rotate that. And it's rotating the whole station by bumping it. Okay, well, we'll rotate back here, and actually by rotating it back, that lines the nodes up, the docking node, and it just all of a sudden docks on me, which is kind of cool. So when I translate that back to my dimension, that is about 4 meters long and using the 2.5 meter parts. Okay, so now step 2 was to pull the PMA off and flip around and redock with this active berthing node that's on Tranquility. It's one of the 3 active ones. Just like on the real ISS, they have 6 berthing locations. 3 of them, though, are disabled because, look around, you can see where other parts, and now that one's docked up, other parts probably wouldn't be able to actually come in and attach there. There's just too much stuff around. It would go into the integrated truss, but the bottom facing one is an active node, so we can now take the cupola and flip around, slide underneath, and the next step was to dock that up. This cupola, it's in my world, it's about 2 meters by 1 meter, but in the real world, it was 4 by 2.5. It has 7 windows, with the one in the middle being 80 centimeters across, which is the largest window used in space. After this whole thing was put on, the space station was considered 85% complete. Also, from that cupola, that's where all the robotics work now is done. Whenever they're using the robotic arms, they go in there and that lets them see outside to do all of the maneuvering of the arm. The Tranquility module itself, NASA thought about making it longer because a sleeping chamber had been canceled, but ultimately that got canceled too, both for basically budgetary reasons. Bob is now going to go on EVA so he can clean up those little bits that are on the outside that were only used in order to get it up in and docked up to the station. Anyway, with the cancellation of the sleeping, the HAB module, and the reduction, well, not reduction, but I guess the not increasing of the size of the Tranquility module, the sleeping arrangements in the station are pretty much that you just grab your sleeping bag and you stick it somewhere on a wall or on a ceiling, somewhere around the station. There are 2 places in the Russian side and 4 in the US segment where that takes place, and they just slide in and they go to sleep wherever. Also, the Tranquility module had new life support, including a new space toilet. I didn't actually put a space toilet in my version of the Tranquility, but, well, why don't we just go down to the vehicle assembly building and take a look at what I did put into Tranquility. Tranquility was launched on a 2.5 meter rocket. We had to throw on 4 extra boosters on the side though, just to get it up there because I didn't have quite a high enough thrust to weight ratio otherwise. And up here in the fairing we can see that we have the Tranquility here and Cupola is here, and then I have a brand new space tug up on top. We'll come back to that in a second. Working our way from down here, I have a strut on it right there because I wanted to know which side was down, so to speak. See this docking node right here? It's the only one that's actually a docking node other than this one. This one is going to dock it to the space station, and this one is going to dock the Cupola to it. But everything else isn't actually, these are over here, these are not docking nodes. Well, I guess the top one there is too, but 3 of them, just like on the real space station, 3 of them do not function right now. They're just visually, they look like docking nodes, but nothing would actually be able to dock to them. These are on here just for maneuverability. They get removed once we're in orbit. This also gets removed in orbit. And like I said, just lets me see which is the one docking node that is the one that I want to point down, so that once we have this part, and we can see here that these are on there because they're docking nodes, but this is the welded part. And that's why now you can see what's going on. They're all part of that thing so that I could reduce my part count, and that's why they don't function. This one does though, because it's connected to the Cupola, which is up here. Now that, if we look over in my pod section here, normally it's about the same size as one of these. In fact, this one, it's about that big, just not quite as tall. Notice how this has been made a lot smaller. I went into the part file, and since I don't use this Cupola anywhere else in my entire save, I just modified it to scale it down. So this is now a slightly different scale because I want it more realistic, like the one that's on the ISS. This, like I said, is a new space tug. It has a docking node on one side for the one type of gear and another on the other for the other type of gear. Or not gear, I mean like docking nodes. Two different types of docking nodes on the 2 ends. Of course, with gyroscopes to help it be more stable. And we have these RCS on there as well for the stability, and in combination with the ones that were on Tranquility at launch, that made it RCS balanced. 3 solar panels so that there's always one that can point toward the sun. Batteries, lights, there's 1 RTG on here because if this is not doing anything, it's not using its gyroscopes or anything like that, then that RTG can actually power it even through the dark side of communication, dark side of the solar power. But when I'm using my systems, like trying to maneuver it using the gyroscopes, there's more pull, and so I usually want to do that in light, but I want to do that in light anyway. So we have our standard remote tech and engines. These engines are pointing in both directions, allowing me to go forward or backward using an action group. We switch over here and see the action groups here for a second. You can see I have my communications antenna was on an action group. But also, oh, I took them off already. Well, they were there a moment ago. In Custom 2, I had 2 of those, and in Custom 3, I had the other 2. So I could hit 2 and 3 to toggle the direction that I was traveling without needing to flip around. The actual computer on this is this little itty bit right here. It is a remote control unit that I got out of the Cosmos pack, and I modified it to be capable of receiving and sending signals for remote control. So it's a nice radially attachable CPU, basically. There's a couple handrails just in case I want to latch onto it while on EVA. More lights all over the place. The strut was holding it inside the fairing, and that's just a little bit that's left over. More lights down here. We'll take away that antenna, and then you can see that this piece in the middle, that's one big tank that I got from the Cosmos pack. It contains monopropellant. Usually you can put that in space stations, but I hooked it up to be a nice space tug fuel tank. And that does it. That is the last of our bits that went into that launch.
Back at Mission Control, global broadcasts have been monitored since Jospeh sent his minions to disrupt Project Gateway. Now, new chatter has been picked up, leading us to believe we know the location of Jospeh and his secret rocket construction facility. An elite force of Kerbal commandos has been sent to take him down, led by Kerman himself. They fly deep into the Clegane Badlands in search of his hideout. Somewhere in the hills ahead sits Jospeh Kerman, unaware that his capture is imminent.
Back around Minmus, we had just released that little capsule that was bringing down replacement parts to fix the engine on our escape craft that's down on the surface at the research base. And I'm coming in here, but I thought when I was coming in that I was targeting the base. Turned out I was actually looking at the rovers. Oh dear. Well, I have to make a really quick move here. And even though we were on our way down, we power up the engines and just burn our way across the surface back toward the base, doing a little kind of arc. We swing around and come in from the other side. If I had noticed that those blips on my map were the rovers, obviously I wouldn't have gone to them, I'd have gone to the base. But there's plenty of fuel on this little thing, so we're coming in okay, and we'll just set it down right in the middle of the base here so that Bill can then go out there and grab those parts from inside the storage compartment, those 6S chambers. They've been working on all the systems inside that capsule, and they have everything running. The life support is in good working order. It's all good. The only thing that was missing was some damage to the engine pump and the ignition system. That's what these are. These are representing those parts. We'll move them over, hook them up, do a couple repairs, and then we'll be on our way back up to the station. So, an interesting thing has come out of all of this. Bill originally had his rule about that no orbital debris because partially he's compulsive and just likes everything clean, but also because he didn't want anything to collide with any of the ships and cause damage. But now he realizes that it's dangerous out there. No matter how much you plan for, something can go wrong, like that shower of debris. And quite honestly, he might have been traumatized to the point of being numb to it by having so much debris. Anyway, he's decided that instead of no orbital debris, maybe what's really important is redundancy, so that if anything does happen, you have a backup plan. So now, rather than his rule being no more orbital debris, he's going back with the intention of putting forth to Krantz and the rest of the team, Jeb and Bob, that from now on, redundancy. 2 of everything, just to make sure that if anything ever goes wrong, we always have a backup. And this is a rule that's going to carry forward from this mission into the next series as well. Jebediah and the red shirts on the Minmus station are very excited to see that Bill and everybody else is okay and that they're coming up and docking with them. Jeb up there, he's actually breaking out a bunch of his personal Kit Kats and giving them to everybody to celebrate their safe return. But risking their lives for science is what they do, and science is what they got. In a previous episode, we had put together scattered bits of imagery, but now it has all come together with the science that we've collected from Minmus. This is the symbol that we have identified on a manual that looks similar to the one we got that helped us put together the ISS. We're not quite sure what we're supposed to do with this yet, but we're still analyzing the manual. Okay, Bob's EVA is done, so he's going back inside because he wants to glide through the station and down into the cupola so that he can look outside. So we're transferring him with the crew manifest mod, and he's going to take a peek out through that new module, see what it looks like. Then we have to put our radiators back out because they had been brought in, remember? We're going to rotate them back where they belong to avoid the sun's heat, and that's it. Next time on Project Gateway, we have to analyze the scans that are finally coming in and all complete from Moon. We also have to send a cargo carrier up to the station that will have a bit of cargo that we need to go out and EVA and attach. We also have the Rosviet, that is a Russian science lab, and we need to attach that. We need to deploy some new TDRS satellites because the ones up there are currently pretty much busted. So until next time, I will see you later, Kerbonauts.